first. Welcome to the very first Escrow Tuesdays. This is going to be just kind of a fun, quick 15, 20-minute learning moments of craziness that all, real estate professionals go through in our business, and to try to take away a few things that we could learn from it, and maybe a quick top 5 things at the end. So I will share now my screen, and we'll get to let's get to our PowerPoint here and see. So I've got 2 people with me today. Of course, Narhee Nguyen with Tower Escrow. Narhee, how are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have today a special guest, Jerry. It's a special day today. We will talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, so Jerry, why don't you introduce yourself and what do you do?
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. So I'm with First American Title, and I'm an account rep. We're First American, been with them now for almost 10 years. I almost said a year. It's been 10 years. So have the pleasure. I'm also serving on ARIA's board of director for the last couple of years as well. So been very blessed with that.
Okay. And Narhee, can you tell a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Narhee, as you guys know already. I am with Tower Escrow. I started back in 2012, end of 2012. So it's been some time. I do a lot of the business development for Tower Escrow. We currently have 4 different locations. I currently reside in Roland Heights, but we do have LA, Downey, and Torrance.
Wow.
So
you're kind of spread out there. All right. Well, Let me introduce myself. I'm Charles Swanberg, and I started off with a residential real estate, and I switched over to commercial and industrial, and I've been doing that for a while. And I've got a small boutique firm in San Gabriel Valley, and try to do commercial things, although I do have agents that do practice residential. So I kind of see it all. And this program was meant to kind of maybe, share those ideas and things. Instead of giving you COVID updates or market updates, which you guys can get in many places all over the place. I mean, just look on Zoom. We thought we would kind of give some content that's near and dear to our heart. That is that particular thing called escrow. It's always good to open an escrow, right, Jerry? When you get that call, or I'm sorry, Narhee, when you get that call and someone says, I need to open an escrow, it's kind of a joyous moment, right? Everyone's happy. The deal is obviously signed and done, and the EMD is coming in. And what's your feeling when you get that escrow order? I mean, are the agents kind of happy, or is it like, oh, another escrow? It's always happy, right? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I said when we get an escrow, it's very exciting because every escrow has its own story. So you just never know.
Yeah, and it's true, right? I mean, a lot of times an agent will have spent many months and even years trying to get a listing, and then once they get the listing, they got to sell it. And once they sell it, it's an escrow, and it's always more than one party and more than one set of, you could say, there's many driving factors are coming into it. It's never one-sided. Escrow is obviously a neutral party that you have to not mediate, but, things coming and going, checks and balance, and has to balance. So, Jerry, you got a call from me requesting, I think it was a prelim initially, and you probably was wondering, what the heck am I ordering that for? Maybe I was just some property research, right?
No, so definitely. So yeah, we got a call from Charles, saying that he's got this deal, a large loan coming up. I think it was coming out of a sale, but I think when he reached out to us, it was to do title for a loan. And what was the amount, Charles? 10, 12 million?
Well, yeah, the initial sale, I'll go through the deal synopsis real quickly in a bit, but it was a $17 million sale. It was paid for in cash, and then we needed to get a loan. Now, obviously, a cash deal with very little contingencies and stuff typically goes fairly smoothly. There's always going to be a few things here and there, but it went quite smoothly, went quickly. However, to get that, the money back out, so to speak, of the $12.5 million was where you could say the hell started. That was an interesting journey, so yeah, it was a $12.5 million loan amount, which, for some people is large. Some people, maybe if you're an institutional investor, it's nothing. But for me, it was a large deal for sure. And, we started in late 2019. And so what was your, when I first called you, what was your feeling as what kind of deal this was going to be and what challenges you thought?
I was excited. I was like, oh, Charles is sending a deal over.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
I was excited. And I remember, if my memory jogs me correct, I mean, it was a large multi-unit apartment. And even the prelims, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people still think, hey, how come it's been a day I haven't gotten my prelim? People think it's just computer generated, but it's not. Like, people actually, there's like a team of people that actually search through documents, have to type it up, and and it takes a little bit longer for commercial properties. So I think residential, normally it's about a prelim for a residential, it's about like 2 days on average, sometimes faster, sometimes longer. For commercials, it can take up to 4 or 5 days, sometimes even a little bit longer, because the time between transactions are so long, so the searching is usually a lot more extensive on top of everything else. So if I recall, even the prelim took a little bit longer to get out, which again is typical for commercial type of stuff.
Yeah, and generally almost everything takes a little bit longer, in commercial for sure. Just a gestation period sometimes, and even more so, of course, it's important in residential on what's on title there that you're going to pay off. But in commercial, you have a lot of roadblocks and just even paying the loan off, let alone getting the new loan, right, Jerry? I mean, you've got prepayment penalties in commercial. You have special loans that you're paying off that have special procedures. And of course, anything can happen in escrow. And what did this loan have? It had a HUD loan on it that had to be paid off at the beginning on the purchase. And it could only be paid off at the end of the month on a specific day before a specific time. And if you did not meet that deadline, you had a penalty of approximately $60,000. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you're working on trying to get $12.5 million and somehow you run into a $60,000 roadblock, well, sometimes you'll make an investment decision, say, okay, it's worth it. I want to do it right away. But from the standpoint of me, which I was doing the loan brokering and the sale at the beginning, they would all point to me or Narhee or Jerry and say, hey, it's not my fault that the deal didn't close. It's your fault. You're going to pay the $50,000. And so that would have been, catastrophic to doing this whole thing. It was just, just something that you didn't want to deal with. So when we started this loan, it started off as a $10 million loan, and the borrower said, we want a little bit more. So we creatively figured out a way for them to get 12.5. And the property did not actually cash flow, as they say. The amount of income from the rents did not support $12.5 million. But we figured out a way to where it would eventually cash flow within a year. And the bank was okay with that. So we actually set up a kind of a chart to where which tenants would be raising, or the rents would be raised on those tenants. And thankfully, this property had a lot of Section 8 renters, which, looking back now in COVID, that's a great thing. Some property owners do not like Section 8. Jerry, are you familiar with Section 8?
Somewhat, not as much.
Yeah, I don't know, Narhee, you probably have encountered, multiple tenant properties. But it's a government subsidy, and sometimes almost all of the rent is paid by the government. And not only that, they typically will pay market value or even higher. So you may have some tenants in the building that have been there for a while, and the rents just aren't getting raised fast enough. But in Section 8, it's typically at market. So it's good to have. And in this case, the buyer lucked out that, the Section 8 actually helped in the property. So we had a lot of issues in this with even just getting the insurance set up. And I know Narhee dealing with the processor of this bank, which was being funded out of Michigan, I believe, or it was Nebraska. And then the processing unit was actually in Northern California. So you had funding in Nebraska. You had processing in Northern California, I believe it was in San Francisco, and you had the payoff bank, which is in another city in the Midwest. Now, luckily, there were 3 time zones to deal with. So when someone said, we need to get paid off at 11 a.m., I said, well, 11 a.m. what? We didn't know. And if you didn't meet that deadline, we'd have that penalty, right? So I was always constantly like trying to figure, all right, well, does she mean this? And, in these days with Zoom and virtual, people are going to events in different time zones now, and people need to know when is what. So
something else I noticed, Charles, maybe not so much of this transaction, but I noticed a lot of times like when they deal with a kind of a group, I guess I would call this a group in Southern California, like they don't understand title and escrow being different. Everywhere else, everybody's so used to title and escrow being under the same roof, but that's just not how we do business here in Southern California. So we just closed another deal with an East Coast lender. And maybe they had some new people there. They're not familiar with SoCal. They were so confused. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's another escrow? Like, I don't think maybe that person was new. They didn't get it.
Yeah, it is a phenomenon, because I was in Northern California doing real estate, and when I came down to Los Angeles, you're right, it was separate. So that was definitely unusual. Narhee, have you ever experienced a lot of agents that had moved different areas and then come to Southern California and are surprised that you only are running, there are separate, reps for each different, module?
We've encountered that only a handful of times. Yeah, not too much.
Not too much. I know in different parts of the country, New York, they use lawyers and attorneys for title and things, and in some different parts of the country are handled differently. But I think for the most part,
New York, yeah,
right, that's its own animal. It could be some other states too. So I don't know how you guys do those deals, but I heard it's also can be tedious and kind of up. You're kind of at the whim of these companies and attorneys and things. But, you don't realize going through a deal like this, how important it is to have a great team that you trust and believe in. And with Narhee and Jerry, I was so blessed to have them on this team, because we went through so much. I kind of go through the evening before we were supposed to close, and we finally got loan documents. Narhee, what was that like? I think I called you like it was 8 p.m. that I got loan documents after some crazy, hula hoop dances, rings of fire jumping through. And we finally got the documents, and we set up I think it was maybe 9 o'clock that we set up a signing at the residence of the person. And how did you describe that? Because you see, I thought he was going to read, and the couple were going to read every word, and we were going to be there till like 11 p.m.
11.
And what happened?
No, it was the total opposite.
Right. I mean, the lady was actually, she was on the board of another bank. So I thought, and she was a CPA, right? So I thought we were going to be there for a couple hours.
Mm-hmm. No, but he said, "Where do I sign?" And she said, "Where do I sign?" And that was it. And we went through a little, all the pages of the loan docs, and we were out of there no more than an hour and a half.
I don't even think that long, really. We talked more about calligraphy and other things.
Yeah, that's why.
I swear I thought we were going to be there for hours, and I thought this was going to be the biggest stumbling block. I got to get these loan docs signed, right? I mean, that's all I need to do. Once I get the loan docs signed, I'll give it to Jerry, Narhee, things will close and it'll be done, right? That's what my feeling was. And of course, this was just the start of the crazy nightmare kind of thing, right? So once we got out of there, it was pretty late, and I'm thinking, well, all right, can I just take the docs and get it over to Jerry? And you're staring at me. I remember that look you gave me. I'm like, because I kind of misremembered the procedure that escrow has to follow, right? I mean, you can't let those out of your hands.
No.
I mean, I carried him from the client to the car, and you had a problem with that. And you were looking at me going, where are you going with those things? You know?
And we trust you, but it's just the procedure. Like, imagine like if we gave the grant deed and we just gave it to the buyer and just be like, here, buyer, go take this down to get recorded. I mean, shoot, it's going to be somebody else's name on there once it gets to the county.
But that was kind of the, I didn't realize that, I didn't know that it was a problem, because in the past I had sent it out to escrow. I never actually, Pony Expressed it in some sense. But yeah, so that was kind of, I was a little, surprised at, but I respected that, because you guys took the procedure more seriously than friendship. I was hurt, but that was, so I got to hand it to you. I mean, you had to do it. You said, I'm sorry, Charles, it's just too bad that we got to do our job. So,
well, Charles, our friendship is worth more than $12 million.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, that was great. So here we are the morning of, right? And I said that to where at 6 a.m. I was going to just go towards somewhere, because we had to get the documents to you, Jerry, right? And then you had to look at it and then fund. And then you had to fund, or, it had to go fund. Excuse me. What was it? We had to actually fund to you guys. The bank had to fund to title, and then title had to send the payoff. And this all had to happen by 11 a.m. that day. And then we had to record the trust deed and close it the same day, which, if most people are not familiar with Los Angeles County, you can't do that typically. You have to do some special procedures. So we'll get to that scenario. But I'm on my way to Narhee's office, and Jerry's office is around 7 a.m. And I found out from my processor that one of the documents was not notarized in the right place. So here I go, the first kind of roadblock that comes up. And luckily, I met the client at 7:30 a.m. at the county recorder's office. I don't think they open. When do they open, Jerry? Like, I mean, they 9 or 10? I can't remember.
I mean, they open pretty early, but to the public, I want to say 8, but I'm not sure
right.
What time it is.
Right. So this guy drives a good 40 miles to this special place, the owner, who, is worth like $80 million. And, has, I guess, well, this is important to him, right? I mean, he's got to close this deal. So he's out there waiting in the car, and I get there, and I luckily got him to sign that, and we got it notarized with a mobile notary. And we got Jerry all the documents that you needed, and you got it from Narhee. So now you have the documents, you're looking it over, and now you're just waiting for the money, right, from the bank.
Yeah.
And so here's one of the things we didn't realize. I've got an 11 a.m. deadline, and it's 8 a.m. And I'm like, okay, well, we've got some time, right? How long does it take to get a wire and receive it? Well, that's another kind of, thing that we didn't realize. So I thought the wire was going to go out the first thing in the morning, from Nebraska. They're a few hours ahead of us, so that by the time I got at 8 o'clock, I thought the wire would be in, and Jerry would, you would be able to confirm it. But when I called you, Jerry, what did they say?
Yeah, the wire isn't in.
And I'm like, it must be a mistake, right? So I called our processor in Northern California, and it wasn't until, I kept calling, and the client was still there in the car. And I said, look, we're still waiting for the wire. We don't know what's going on. And I'm just, the color's coming out of my face. It's now around, I believe, 10 o'clock. I've got an hour for Jerry to receive the wire from the main bank, and then for Jerry to wire it out to Nebraska, and then for the Nebraska bank to receive it and say, yes, I got it, all within about an hour or so. And I get a call at 10:30 from our processor for the bank that, was funding it. I believe it was from San Francisco. And he goes, Charles, I got some bad news. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the bad news, but I had no idea what it was going to be. He says, well, the wire got kicked back. And I'm like, okay, we'll just send it out again, right? And they said, well, no, the wire got kicked back because we didn't realize there was a $10 million limit on the outgoing wires. And so we had to split it up and resend it again. And I'm like going, how can this be? Don't banks check? It's a bank, right? They do wires all the time. And they do hopefully deals larger than 10 million. And I'm thinking, but that's actually the case. So it's 10:30. We've got 30 minutes for them to resend a wire in Tuesdays. I'm calling Jerry, I've got him on the other phone, and I've got, I think I was on the computer. I can't remember what it was. It was some sort of other WeChat, live call. And I realized at around 10:45, I had to make a decision. There was a $60,000 penalty that was going to occur if we did send out that wire eventually, and it came late after 11 o'clock. And of course, they were all going to point to who, right here, $60,000, or maybe to Jerry, or maybe to Narhee. Who knows? All of us. Maybe we'd have to pitch in all about 20 grand. No big deal. And I'm like, I've got to do something, I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking like, shoot, maybe I'll just, borrow it or something. I was just thinking totally irrationally. And then I had no choice but to call the recipient bank, in Nebraska. And I just was going to get on my knees over the phone and say, hello, we've got this wire. We realize it needs to get there in 30 minutes. Our bank hasn't even funded the title company, let alone the title company receiving you. And is there any wiggle room? Because they specifically had a date that they had to do, and it's HUD that has to be paid. So I figured they were inflexible. And the words out of her mouth was, and there was a pause, and I'm thinking, I see here, any way we could delay this a couple hours? Is there any kind of wiggle room? And her reply was, oh, we could do it tomorrow. And all the blood started going to my head. I'm like, I felt like I was ascending to heaven, It was kind of like, woo. It was like, my heart started beating again. I was, kind of trying to keep that heart kind of pumping for a while. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, and she's kind of talking about details. I'm like, that's it? All I had to ask, And she goes, all right, well, we'll just do it tomorrow. And I realized that this bank was the receiving servicer for HUD. So they basically get the payoff, they kind of package it up, and then they send it to HUD. So they had themselves a couple of days of wiggle room. But I did not do that. They just, would send a written kind of demand that just absolutely says, we need to pay out by this, on this day, before this time, no ifs, ands, and buts, $60,000 penalty if you don't. So finally, after I kind of like a sigh of relief, I said, well, can you just send me anything in writing? Just email me something. So we're not just having this verbal combination or conversation you forget. So she finally sent it. And once I got that in my face, I called the borrower who's in the car with me. I said, I talked to him and said, all right, we're done. We've got it. We've got more wiggle time. Now we had to get that wire out. So we finally got the wire out. And I don't think, Jerry, when did you guys receive it? It was well into the afternoon, right?
I believe so. I don't remember the exact time now.
Yeah, but it was well in the afternoon, right? And then we decided that we better just go record that trust deed. So
we were just waiting. I just remember we were just waiting.
Right.
We're standing around. I think we went and got Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
That's
you
right.
did.
That was my most nervous Chick-fil-A meal I ever had. I don't think I
Yeah.
That was pretty bad. So yeah, it was crazy. And that whole recording the same day was amazing, Jerry. You guys set it up really well. The borrower was there. He was there signing. We had that third party person that facilitated the recording. And so I'm now going to go to the kind of the top 5 things. And I didn't really set it up on the PowerPoint to cascade, but, don't assume that the bank could wire large amounts, as we found out. I know it's a simple thing, but you never know when you're working with large transactions, what it could be. And maybe the bank doesn't do a lot. And don't assume that your processing unit that's offsite is on the same page. I mean, that's a given, right? But when you have these larger commercial banks, they have a lot of different pieces, right? We had a payoff bank in a different state. We had a processing unit. We had a funding unit, escrow. Everyone was in a different spot. And of course, this was before COVID. This was the very end of February. And then, don't assume that your title company can record the same day, obviously. And we'll skip 4 because we'll go back to it. 5, don't assume that hardline penalty is not flexible. Maybe it is. Find out exactly why they need that payoff. The SBA 504 debenture loan that sometimes is paid off on commercial deals does have a hard deadline of penalty. You can pay it off any time, but there's only 2 windows every 6 months that you can pay it off. So back to number 4, and that is on this particular deal, what was there that was kind of a sleeping elephant, you could say?
Yeah, so basically the owner, the borrower, had taken out a loan from it was a seller, right?
Right.
Yeah, he took out a loan from the seller that he paid him off. And I guess there was some misunderstanding because, see, when you pay off a loan, let me preface by saying this. When you get a loan, usually you get a lien put on your property. And the way they do that is by recording this document called a deed of trust. And then after that loan gets paid off, they need to record another document called a reconveyance, or, for short, we call it just a recon. Well, I guess the borrower paid off the seller, assuming that they did a recon. It never actually happened. So all this time, everybody's assuming that, it's taken care of, it's paid off. It just, they have the recon, maybe it's somewhere, but it actually never happened.
Yeah, so, and if you guys were not of the understanding of this deal, Narhee, I mean, what could have happened? I mean, they could have just said, hey, we need to clear this up before we close, right?
Right. Yep. It would have delayed the closing.
I mean,
that would have had to be cleared and paid off regardless, but it just, it was all just too many last minute stuff.
Right. So, what was great was in having a great team is after we closed it, to make sure this would never happen, we actually tracked down that person, who didn't do the original recon, right? And sometimes it could be years in the past, right? They may not be of this world anymore. So, we were able to track this person down, and this person actually had some health issues that, could have been, maybe not as good as it could have been. And you had no one to sign it. And I heard there was another way to kind of deal with that, but it's probably a bit more complicated.
Yeah, and I think actually going back to this, I think we had already gotten proof that it was paid off. Like, if I remember, we had already gotten proof that it was paid off.
Luckily.
So we were able to kind of close the deal, and that's why we're able to close the deal without that recon first, because this is a refi, it's not a sale. So being that, but still the owner and we were all insistent, like, we got to get this recon because the lender, the seller, like Charles said, his health wasn't the best. What if he passed away? What if when the property goes to sale, this pops up again? I mean, there's so many what ifs. So we got it done.
Yeah. So Narhee, what are your thoughts on this whole couple days? I know I lost a few pounds and I totally grew some gray hairs on this one. Any takeaways on what you think?
Yeah, many takeaways. Communicate, never assume, and be flexible. And you just never know what's going to happen. You just got to, roll with the punches and just find solutions.
All right. Well, that wraps up basically our quick kind of story and kind of top 5, not to do's here. And first Escrow Tuesdays. Narhee, thank you and Jerry for your wisdom. We've got one more last slide here, which is, of course, the most important, and that is Jerry's.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Jerry. And
Birthday.
I can't stress enough how important it is to have a great team to work with that you trust, even though they won't let you take the grand teed and run around town with it, but all right, and documents, but we understand.
Yeah, I just want to say this was like pre-lockdown, and I'm happy to say that I was the only guy at the county wearing a face mask.
That's true. That's right.
That's right. You were just.
I remember.
But it was amazing, right? I don't think this would ever happen if it was 2 weeks later, because literally, I think 11 days later, we were under lockdown.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have a client that's texting me right now as we're talking, asking if LA County can do a special. And, our hands are tied with LA County right now in doing these type of same day recordings.
Right. All right. Well, happy birthday, Jerry. And thanks, everyone. We're going to be posting this on to YouTube and to Facebook later as a recorded series. And every week, we hope you'll join us and you'll get some good takeaways on, a real live escrow learning moment. So as you know, Narhee and Jerry, anything can happen in escrow, right?
Anything. Yeah.
Anything.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
We got to do a plug.
Oh, that's right.
We got to do a plug. So it's 9:37 right now at 10 a.m. So just 20 minutes from now. As you guys know, Narhee and I are with the ARIA Tri-County Board. Charles is our former president. ARIA Tri-County is hosting a feng shui event with feng shui master Alex Z. And so make sure you join if you haven't registered yet. We're going to post that. Maybe let's post that on Facebook at the ARIA Tri-County Facebook.
Yep.
So if you're viewing this as a recording, make sure you get on that, register. Alex is always full of great information, especially right now as you kind of consult your clients, either over the webinar or in person. They're going to want to know some of this stuff and kind of how to better feng shui their home. When you're showing homes, how to kind of conduct that and so forth. So definitely join us for that.
Right. And of course, to me, he was the only guy that called this whole 2020 craziness. Me and Brian On, who was the former OC RE chapter, and said, Alex, what's going to go on in 2020? We were curious, is it going to be a great year? He goes, no, it's going to be bad. We're going to have, and I'm like, huh? I was really kind of shocked, and I didn't really think about it until here we are in 2020, right?
You get to learn about what do you call it? Slanted eyes or triangle eyes? Triangle eyes. So if you're curious,
what are you trying to say, Jerry?
You're going to want to listen to Alex. He's going to tell you what triangle eyes are.
Right. And then Narhee, you have also another follow-up event, I believe. Is it on, what day is it on?
August 25th at 3:28.
3:28? Why 3:28?
You got to come and find out.
It must be numerology. It's got to be a feng shui. That's what it is. All right, you guys. Thank you, guys.